Hey friends, welcome, and thank you for choosing to listen today.
The content discussed in this program is based on publicly accessible historical documents, academic research, and verifiable archival records. All statements presented are intended as historical analysis and cultural exploration, and are offered in the spirit of scholarly and educational exchange. This program does not express any contemporary political positions, nor does it promote ideological viewpoints or value judgments. It does not target, criticize, or assign blame to any country, nation, or ethnic group. The discussion is confined to historical facts and their contextual background, with full respect for diverse academic perspectives and interpretative approaches. Historical subjects are inherently complex and open to multiple interpretations. The perspectives presented in this program are grounded in currently available sources and do not constitute commentary on present-day issues or political positions. Listeners are encouraged to engage with the material thoughtfully and with an open, rational mindset.
Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Interesting Chinese Culture. Some time ago, a friend asked me a very interesting question. Why do Chinese women sit the month after giving birth? The question came up because this friend had just become a father. After his Chinese wife's parents heard the news, they immediately flew over to visit them and took them to look at a series of postpartum care recovery centers. My friend suddenly asked, why does it feel like Chinese women have so many things they can and cannot do after giving birth? What is the reason behind this? So today, let's talk about China's yuezhi culture, the culture of postpartum care confinement. A room, a few windows, and curtains pulled tightly shut. The new mother is wearing long sleeves and long pants with a towel wrapped around her head. There is a smell of traditional Chinese medicine in the room, and a thermos sits on the windowsill. Her mother or mother-in-law comes in every few minutes and asks, "Are you cold?" Then she quickly closes the door again, as if she is afraid that even a little wind might slip inside. Beside the bed is a bowl of brown sugar millet porridge, and next to it is a small booklet filled with detailed food restrictions. This is a very familiar scene in Chinese families during the postpartum care month. But over the past 10 years, more and more Chinese women have chosen not to stay at home for this period. Instead, they move into a place designed especially for it, something that has grown rapidly in mainland China in recent years, the yuezhi Center, or Postpartum Care Confinement Center. There, everything is already arranged. Professional nutritionists create meal plans. Specialized maternity nannies take care of the newborn baby. Postpartum care recovery specialists come at regular times to guide the mother through recovery exercises. From 2019 to 2024, the penetration rate of postpartum care services in mainland China rose from 7.5% to 17%, while the penetration rate of dedicated yuezhi centers rose from 1.3% to 6%. In other words, more and more Chinese women are willing to spend money to let professionals handle the whole process of sitting the month. This change itself reveals a very interesting fact. Even in the 21st century, postpartum care confinement is still seen as a real need for Chinese women. You may have read in the news about new mothers being wrapped in thick quilts during the summer and suffering from heat stroke. You may also have heard of all kinds of rules during the postpartum care month, such as not washing your hair, not taking a shower, and not being exposed to wind. When you put all these rules together, you may feel that Chinese women are not facing just one or two suggestions. They are facing a complete system of taboos. This system covers diet, behavior, the living environment, and even whether a woman is allowed to cry or use her eyes too much. So where did this system come from? Who made these rules? Is there a theory of traditional Chinese medicine behind them? Are they influenced by traditional culture? Did people 2,000 years ago also do postpartum care confinement in the same way? In today's episode, we will go through these questions one by one. We will start from the Han Dynasty, then move through the Wei, Jin, Tang, Song, Yuan, Ming, and Qing dynasties, all the way to the present day. You will discover that many of the rules that now seem like superstition actually had very practical reasons for existing hundreds of years ago, or even just a few decades ago. We will also talk about how the development of traditional Chinese medicine turned an early postpartum care ritual into a set of behavior rules with a kind of medical basis. More importantly, Chinese women today have not abandoned the tradition of postpartum care confinement. They are simply using their own way to understand this ancient custom again. When it comes to the history of postpartum care confinement, many people trace it back to the Book of Rites. This book was actually compiled during the Western Han Dynasty, but its contents reflect the ritual norms of the pre-Qin period. The chapter called Naizi, or Inner Rules, specifically talks about the rules that should be followed inside the family, between father and son, between men and women, Everyone had their own position and role. This book had a huge influence in history. You could even say that many of the family ethics followed by Chinese people for the past 2,000 years can be traced back to this book. In the section about childbirth, it says that when a wife is about to give birth, in the month of labor, she must move to a side room and cannot remain in the main room. The husband sends someone to ask about her twice a day. When the birth is getting close, the husband must go and ask in person, but at this time, the wife cannot appear before him. Instead, a female servant must dress properly and answer on her behalf. After the child is born, the husband still sends someone to ask about her twice a day. There are some very thought-provoking details here. First, what kind of place was the side room? In the mainstream layout of a traditional family home, the main room was where the master of the house and his wife lived in daily life. The side room was a secondary room or a side chamber. Its position was not as good, and it was not considered as respectable. So why did the wife have to move to the side room? The meaning behind this was not to give the new mother a better place to rest. It was a form of ritual spatial separation. Second, why did the wife not dare to be seen? The hidden meaning here is that a postpartum care woman was believed to be in a special state, one in which she could not directly appear before others. Someone had to stand in for her, dress properly, and pass along her words. Third, whose physical condition was the husband asking about? Did he care about his wife? Of course he did. Asking twice a day was certainly not a small gesture. But this kind of care had rules. It had distance. It had a sense of ritual. It was not the natural expression of care based on an equal relationship between husband and wife. Modern scholars describe this set of practices as ritual behavior carried out during the postpartum care month. In other words, as early as the Western Han Dynasty, or even in pre-Qin texts, postpartum care recovery was already no longer just a matter of physical healing. It had become a set of rituals that had to be followed, with a strong sense of discipline behind them. But things are not that simple. If we only stop at the source texts of mainstream Han Chinese civilization, we will miss an even more interesting clue. Outside the Central Plain civilization of the Han Chinese, many ethnic minority groups have long lived in southern China. The customs preserved by these groups throughout history may actually be older than the records in the Book of Rites, and they may explain the original psychological roots behind the question of why postpartum care women had to be separated. In historical southern China, mainly in the areas that are now Guangxi, Yunnan, and Guizhou, there was once a widespread custom. Men would sit the month in place of their wives. After giving birth, the wife would go out and work as usual, while the husband would lie in bed and play the role of the postpartum care mother. He would receive congratulations from relatives and friends, and in terms of food and drink, he would also receive the same special treatment given to a new mother. This custom was already recorded in Tang Dynasty texts. Taiping Guangji, compiled during the Song Dynasty, included a passage from Yu Qishu's Tang Dynasty work, Nanchu Xinwen. In the south, among the Liao people, when a woman gives birth, she gets up right away. Her husband lies on the bedding, and his food and drink are all treated like those of a nursing woman. In other words, among the Liao people in the south, once a woman gave birth, she would get up and go back to work, while her husband would lie in bed and eat and drink as if he were a breastfeeding woman. The same book also recorded the customs of the Yu people. When a wife gives birth, after 3 days, she washes herself in a stream or river. After returning, she prepares porridge and gives it to her husband. The husband wraps himself in a quilt, holds the baby, and sits on the bed. The postpartum care woman would go to the river to bathe 3 days after giving birth. After returning, she would cook food and bring it to her husband, while the husband sat on the bed, wrapped in a quilt and holding the child. When Marco Polo traveled to southwestern China, he also saw similar customs. In his travel notes, he wrote that after a woman gave birth, she would wash the baby and wrap the child in swaddling clothes. Then the mother would get up and return to work, while her husband would hold the child and lie in bed for 40 days. During this period, he would receive congratulations from friends. In other words, after Dai women gave birth, their husbands had to lie in bed and sit the month, staying indoors for a full 40 days. Even as late as the Qing dynasty, some local records still described similar customs. For example, Shuning Fu Zi from the Qing dynasty recorded that after a Dai man's wife gave birth, he had to hold the child and sit the month. This kind of male postpartum care confinement was not unique to China. Many ethnic groups around the world have had similar historical remains. Anthropologists tend to believe that it reflects a kind of identity confirmation ritual after the establishment of patriarchal society. In other words, when a child was born, the father needed to show in some way that this child is mine. But this proof was not a genetic test. It was a ritual. The husband had to imitate his wife's pain in childbirth and her weakness during bed rest. Only in this way could society fully confirm his ownership of the child and his responsibility for the child. When we put this custom together with the records in the Book of Rites, Nei Zi, we realize that the roots of China's postpartum care confinement tradition are extremely ancient. The detailed and orderly ritual system of the Han Dynasty was very likely built on an older ritual of postpartum care separation for women. Step by step, it was developed, standardized, written down, turned into a classic, and finally accepted by the whole Central Plains civilization as the proper tradition. In other words, the earliest form of postpartum care confinement was full of simple ritual meaning, shamanistic meaning, and primitive social function.
By the Han Dynasty, the core ritual structure had finally been fixed. After giving birth, a woman should enter a state outside daily life, relatively separated from others, carefully watched, and allowed to recover. From the Han Dynasty and the Three Kingdoms period to the Jin Dynasty and the Northern and Southern dynasties, China went through several hundred years of division. At the same time, a new cultural factor appeared, the large-scale spread of Buddhism into China. The influence of Buddhist thought on Chinese social life reached almost everywhere, and its view of gender was no exception. Buddhism placed emphasis on the contemplation of impurity, and it especially regarded women's menstruation and childbirth as physical processes connected with shedding, discharge, and impurity. In this direction, China's local folk beliefs overlapped with Buddhism. Since ancient times, ordinary people have had a natural fear and rejection of blood, especially menstrual blood. They believed blood was bad, foul-smelling, and likely to attract evil energy. So after giving birth, when a woman continued to bleed and discharge lochia, in the folk imagination, she naturally became an unclean person, someone filled with evil energy and harmful force. This folk idea became more fixed during the Northern and Southern dynasties. Documents from that time would mention that the birthing room was unlucky. The place where a woman gave birth was believed to be heavy with yin energy and full of evil forces. The woman herself was also thought to be unsuitable for meeting people, touching ritual objects, or going near ancestral tablets. In order to prevent the postpartum care woman from bringing misfortune to others, there was a very practical strategy. Let her stay in her own room and not come out. Do not let her walk around everywhere, and do not let outsiders come into contact with her. You will notice that the basic logic behind this strategy was the same as the rules in the Book of Rites. The only difference is that one was based on ritual order, while the other was based on superstition. When the two merged, the rules that Chinese postpartum care women should not go out and not see outsiders became even stronger. The Northern Wei dynasty, founded by the Tuoba branch of the Xianbei people, a grassland people from the north, brought something unexpected into Central Plains culture, the tradition of using beef, lamb, and dairy products to nourish the body. In Chinese history, the traditional farming diet of the Han Chinese was mainly based on grains and vegetables, with relatively little meat. But northern peoples, especially nomadic peoples, were different. They saw beef, lamb, and dairy products as the best foods for restoring physical strength. This idea entered the Central Plains through military conquest and political rule, and later influenced the choice of nourishing ingredients used during postpartum care confinement. Today, when we see many soups in yuezhi meals, such as chicken soup, fish soup, and old hen soup, there is, to some extent, a blending of ethnic minority food traditions inside them. By the Tang Dynasty, political unity had returned, and the social and economic map of China had expanded on an unprecedented scale. Chinese civilization entered an extremely open and prosperous period. At the same time, civilizations from the western regions poured into China in large numbers. Indian medicine, Persian medicine, and health preservation practices from Central Asia also spread into China. The people of the Tang Dynasty absorbed things from the outside world in an open cultural atmosphere. But even in this environment of great cultural exchange, the tradition of postpartum care confinement showed no sign of weakening. Instead, it became more and more systematic. The reason we can still see relatively organized Tang Dynasty postpartum care practices today is that the Tang Dynasty left behind a large number of first-hand written materials. The Japanese monk Enin recorded in his travel notes that postpartum care women in the Tang Dynasty were afraid of wind and avoided wind. Among the Dunhuang manuscripts, there are also many texts, such as postpartum care prescriptions and postpartum care taboos for women. These prescriptions clearly told postpartum care women that during the confinement month, they could not touch cold water, could not eat cold food, and could not be exposed to wind. The room had to be kept quiet.
Their emotions had to remain stable. They could not get angry, and they could not cry. The Song dynasty was the key period when China's postpartum care confinement tradition truly took shape. Why do I say that? Because during the Song dynasty, a new Confucian school called Songming Neo-Confucianism emerged. Its central figures, including Zhou Dunyi, the Chang brothers, and Zhu Xi, raised the Confucian idea of ritual to the level of cosmology. They believed that heavenly principle was the fundamental law behind the movement of all things in the universe, and that the ethical rules of human society were the expression of this heavenly principle in the human world. In this way, postpartum care customs, habits, and rituals, which were originally just social practices, were given an absolute legitimacy on both a metaphysical and moral level. If a postpartum care woman did not follow the rules, what she violated was no longer just family rules. She was violating heavenly principle. And what was heavenly principle? Heavenly principle was something that could not be disobeyed. So, in the Song dynasty, postpartum care women generally had to submit even more to all kinds of taboos. Of course, a theoretical framework is one thing, and real life is another. During the Song dynasty, gynecology in traditional Chinese medicine also developed to an unprecedented level. Several important medical books from the Song dynasty discussed postpartum care recovery in a detailed and connected way. During childbirth, a woman would lose a great amount of qi and blood, leaving the body in a state of great deficiency and much stagnation. So during the month after childbirth, she had to pay special attention to a controlled diet, a regular daily routine, and emotional balance, so that the body could return to a normal state. Today, when we hear traditional Chinese medicine talk about eating more nourishing foods during the postpartum care month, the source of this idea is very ancient, but it received a historic and systematic explanation among medical scholars in the Song dynasty. The Song dynasty was also a period when Chinese herbal medicine and food therapy became highly developed. Many famous medicinal soup recipes, such as shenhua tang, which is still used in parts of Fujian today, as well as the Hakka people's favorite angelica and lamb soup, astragalus stewed chicken, and the chicken soup we mentioned earlier, had already taken shape in traditional Chinese medical writings of the Song dynasty. The core logic behind these prescriptions was to nourish qi and blood, keep the blood vessels flowing, and transform stagnant blood. Behind them ran the basic thinking of traditional Chinese medicine. After childbirth, the body needs nourishment, but it cannot be nourished too aggressively. It must first be cleared and regulated, then nourished, with balance as the foundation. This recovery philosophy, which took shape in the Song dynasty, basically formed the entire intellectual foundation of what we now call the Chinese Yuezi meal. The Song dynasty had a developed commercial and handicraft economy, so ordinary families also had the conditions to boil water and drink hot water during the postpartum care month. This was different from the period before the Tang dynasty. Before the Tang dynasty, many ordinary families could not afford to boil water regularly. If postpartum care women drank raw water, they were more likely to become ill or even die. In the Song dynasty, because of the overall improvement in economic conditions and the wider use of firewood and charcoal fuel, many families could provide postpartum care women with warm water, hot water, and warm soup. In reality, this reduced the mortality rate after childbirth. From then on, the strict postpartum care rules of hot water, hot food, and avoiding raw or cold things became completely fixed in the minds of Chinese people. Does this not bring us back to a topic we discussed before? Why do Chinese people like drinking hot water? Now we need to seriously talk about how the evolution of traditional Chinese medicine theory influenced the Chinese idea of postpartum care, confinement. Traditional Chinese medicine has a famous summary of the physical condition of Chinese women after childbirth, much deficiency and much stagnation. Based on this idea, generations of Chinese physicians developed a complex postpartum care recovery plan for the whole body. First, the body needs to be nourished. Nourished with what? Qi and blood. What should be used to nourish it? High-protein foods such as chicken, eggs, and fish, along with some warm-natured Chinese medicinal herbs such as angelica root, astragalus, and cotinopsis when appropriate. There must also be enough soup and liquid. Second, stagnant blood needs to be transformed. What is used for that? Some traditional Chinese medicine practitioners believe certain medicines can help the uterus contract and help discharge lochia. For example, the basic formula of shenhua tang is made of 5 herbs: angelica root, chuangsheng, peach kernel, processed black ginger, and honey-fried licorice root. But in the theoretical system of traditional Chinese medicine, the patient's physical condition is not fixed. People with different body constitutions need completely different combinations of medicine. Even for the same goal, such as nourishing qi and improving blood circulation, the direction of treatment and food choices must be completely different for people with yang deficiency and cold symptoms, yin deficiency with internal heat, damp heat accumulation, or lack of body fluids. However, throughout history, the vast majority of Chinese postpartum care women were cared for at home by their families. There was usually no one at home who knew how to make a proper traditional Chinese medicine diagnosis and treatment plan based on the person's actual condition. So many families adopted the simplest method. No matter what body constitution the woman had, they followed the same warming and nourishing meal plan. That is why today we still see some families treating everyone the same way, giving new mothers chicken soup with yellow rice wine as early as the first week after childbirth. In the writings on gynecology in traditional Chinese medicine throughout Chinese history, there is another extremely important concept that became widely spread and deeply influential. After childbirth, all the joints are empty. These words do not mean that the postpartum care woman's body is literally full of holes in its structure. Rather, they describe a state in which her joints and pores are believed to become open after childbirth, making it especially easy for harmful factors to enter the body while it is weak. Among these harmful factors, wind and cold were seen as the two attacks that had to be avoided most carefully. In other words, if you asked any middle-class grandmother in the Song or Ming dynasty why a postpartum care woman could not be exposed to wind, she would tell you this. After giving birth, all the joints in the body become loose, and all the pores open. Once cold wind blows on the body, it slips in through the pores. After the cold energy enters the bones, it stays inside and refuses to leave. Later, it will cause pain all over the body, headaches, and fear of cold. These symptoms are what people call UZ illness, or illnesses caused by not observing postpartum care confinement properly. From the perspective of modern medicine, this description actually reflects a simple kind of hygiene experience. After childbirth, a woman's immune system may temporarily weaken, and her body's ability to resist external pathogens becomes lower. If she stays in a very cold environment for a long time, she is indeed more likely to become ill. After 2,000 years of layer upon layer of development, traditional postpartum care confinement gave rise to an extremely complex system of taboos. Let's break it down by category and look at what these rules actually include. When it comes to behavior and personal hygiene, the strictest, firmest, and most widely known taboo is this: no bathing and no washing your hair. According to the traditional view, after childbirth, the pores are open. Once the body comes into contact with water, especially cold water, dampness and cold energy will enter through the pores. In the future, this could lead to migraines, joint pain all over the body, and lifelong suffering. The next rule is no brushing your teeth. Older generations even had a saying, give birth to one child, lose one tooth. Does that sound a little absurd, even unbelievable and hard to understand? In fact, from a scientific point of view, these traditional taboo explanations are almost the exact opposite of scientific principles. Then there are requirements about the surrounding environment. The new mother is not allowed to go outside or open the windows. Even in summer, she is not allowed to turn on the air conditioner. In hot weather, both the mother and the baby must wear long sleeves and long pants, wrap themselves tightly, wear socks, and avoid even the slightest bit of wind. The taboos around food are just as complicated in the traditional system. The postpartum care woman is not allowed to eat certain vegetables and fruits that are believed to be cold in nature. From the point of view of traditional Chinese medicine, eating too much cold food can damage the spleen yang and stomach qi, making it easier to suffer from diarrhea and stomach pain. But in fact, this is also very unscientific. It is simply a set of ideas that has been passed down from history. The rules about what a woman cannot drink are more controversial. In some southern regions, folk belief holds that drinking plain boiled water during the postpartum care month can affect body recovery. In some places, such as Taiwan, older generations might even strictly forbid postpartum care women from drinking plain boiled water. They could only drink rice wine water or herbal tea water boiled with ingredients such as red dates, angelica root, and longan. As for the taboos around combing hair and reading books or looking at a phone, older generations did not want postpartum care women to comb their hair too much because they were afraid of postpartum care hair loss. The rule against reading, using the eyes, or playing with a phone is especially lacking in reasonable basis. The only possible issue is that overusing the eyes may cause eye fatigue. In fact, traditional postpartum care confinement is not entirely about not allowing things. There are also some things that postpartum care women are clearly encouraged to do. First, sleep more. Sleep as much as possible, because catching up on rest throughout the day is considered the top priority. Second, drink more nourishing soups, such as chicken soup, fish soup, and pig's trotter and peanut soup. This is meant to provide nutrition and fluids, and to help support breast milk. Third, drink brown sugar ginger water, or medicinal meals made with rice wine, to drive away wind, dispel cold, and promote blood circulation. Fourth, soothe the emotions, avoid rage and deep crying, and reduce excessive consumption of qi and blood. According to traditional Chinese medicine, this helps maintain the balance of qi and blood, allowing the woman to pass through the postpartum care period calmly. Fifth, wear warm enough clothes and socks. Keep the whole body warm, and do not let the hands and feet become cold. Sixth, maintain emotional connection with the closest family members, especially the birth mother or the husband's mother, because this is, after all, a major physical and emotional transition. Postpartum care confinement is not a cultural phenomenon unique to China. In Korea, postpartum care women drink seaweed soup after giving birth, BECAUSE. Koreans believe seaweed is rich in calcium and iodine, and that it is very helpful for replenishing blood and restoring the bones after childbirth. Postpartum care confinement is not a cultural phenomenon unique to China. In Korea, postpartum care women drink seaweed soup after giving birth. Koreans believe seaweed is rich in calcium and iodine, and that it is very helpful for replenishing blood and restoring the bones after childbirth. Seaweed also carries strong symbolic meaning in Korean culture. On the dining table after the confinement period, it represents a new beginning, a new life, and something beautiful. In Japan, postpartum care women also rest for about 3 to 4 weeks after giving birth. They eat a lot of fish dishes and rice porridge. In addition, postpartum care hygiene care in Japan is very clean, and in recent decades, its nutritional arrangements have already become very close to the hospital discharge process in Western countries. In India and most parts of South Asia, there is a 40-day recovery period, called confinement or the 40 days. People use turmeric, ghee, cumin, and the Indian herbal system of Ayurveda to prepare special nourishing pastes and medicinal foods for postpartum care women. These are used to help clear heat toxins from the body and balance bodily fluids. In some traditional communities in Latin America, postpartum care women strictly follow confinement-like taboos in Peru. They cannot touch cold water, cannot go outside and be exposed to wind, and must drink coca tea from the Andes to strengthen the body. In European and American countries, it can be said that there is basically no fixed ritual custom like sitting the month. Postpartum care medical care is handled entirely by nurses and obstetricians in the hospital. After going home, mothers do not need to follow special food restrictions. Some mothers in good physical condition may even drive the baby to the supermarket the next day, or take the child for a walk in the park. Of course, many mothers today also attach great importance to rest. They try to avoid too much travel and exhaustion for a period of time, and they focus on nutrition by eating different kinds of fish, shrimp, lean meat, milk, whole wheat bread, and plenty of vegetables and fruits. They may also take a warm shower once every 1 or 2 days to stay fresh and clean over time. Compared with mothers in other countries, Chinese mothers often do not understand why some young mothers can go out just a few days after giving birth, wearing a dress and high heels. But sometimes, making cross-cultural comparisons can also help people overcome the fear that if they do not follow these old rules from thousands of years ago, something terrible will happen. To sum up, Chinese postpartum care confinement is not a completely baseless set of superstitious chains placed on women. It is a postpartum care protection mechanism that grew out of 2,000 years of material conditions in agricultural society, traditional Chinese medical ideas about health, so there is no need to see postpartum care confinement as a backward habit that should be abandoned. It is simply the best way China's ancestors could think of to tell later generations this: a woman has just created life, and she also deserves to be treated gently by life.